Welcome to Unbound, the podcast with Beth Curry, author, storyteller, and survivor. This is where books meet real life, where Beth reads chapters from her work and breaks free from the traditional audiobook format, diving deeper into the personal experiences, lessons, and liberation behind every page. Nothing is off limits. Let's get unbound.
Hey, welcome back to Unbound. I'm Beth Curry. Today's chapter is called 29 Years, and it's about my husband Brian's memories of Mom. He has known her nearly as long as he's known me, and his perspective offers something different from mine. Not so much a daughter's complicated relationship, but the observations of someone who chose to love her through decades of family life. This chapter is a bit lighter than the last few. It's about a relationship between a man and his mother-in-law built on small moments of humor and mutual respect. 29 years. I find it uniquely revealing seeing your parent through the eyes of a person who chose to love you. Brian, my husband of 27 years, but who Mom has known for 29, has known Mom nearly as long as he's known me. He's witnessed her transitions from working mother to doting grandmother, from church administrator to retiree, from sharp-minded conversationalist to someone navigating cognitive decline. While my memories of Mom are layered with the complexities of a daughter-mother relationship, Brian's perspective offers something different, the observations of someone who came to love her, not by blood obligation, but through everyday moments over decades of shared family life. Today, I've brought along a list of Brian's memories to share with Mom. He's offered them as bullet points, brief snapshots rather than elaborate stories, but each one encapsulates something essential about the woman who became his mother-in-law nearly 3 decades ago. Brian wanted me to share some of his memories of you, I tell Mom as we settle into our chairs in the lobby at Willow Grove. Brian? She repeats, eyebrows raising slightly. Today seems to be a moderately good day, not her sharpest, but there's recognition in her eyes at the name. She doesn't usually question Brian. My husband, I clarify gently. Crew's dad? Oh, Brian! Her face lights up with genuine warmth. The tall one. Is he working today? I smile at this simple but accurate description, and most of us are tall ones compared to Mom. Yes, he is. He's been thinking about you and remembering all the good times. She settles back in her chair, pleased with this prospect. He's a good boy. I don't correct her choice of boy for a man now in his 50s. In her mind, we're all forever younger versions of ourselves. Do you remember our trip to New Jersey? I began, selecting one of Brian's more vivid memories. We all went to Wildwood together. You, Dad, Brian, Crew, and me. We rented that house near the boardwalk. Mom's brow furrows in concentration. The beach, she says finally, with all the rides. That's right. The boardwalk had all those amusement rides that Crew loved. It was our big family vacation. We drove, she adds, another piece slotting into place. Such a long drive. Dave got impatient with the traffic. This detail, so characteristically accurate about Dad's driving temperament, but inaccurate as Dave didn't drive at all on this trip, makes me smile. It was a very long drive, but do you remember what happened with Crew on the boardwalk? She looks at me blankly for a moment, then something shifts in her expression. He got hurt. Oh, the poor little thing. Well, he wasn't badly hurt, I clarify, but he had been having stomach pain all day. We later figured out it was from eating too much Activia yogurt. But when we were headed to dinner on the boardwalk, he tripped and fell. Mom's eyes widened suddenly. His spleen, she exclaims, the memory returning with surprising clarity. I was worried he burst his spleen. I can't help laughing, remembering Brian's recounting of Mom's medical diagnosis delivered with absolute conviction, despite having no medical training whatsoever. Yes, you were sure he'd burst his spleen from falling. You were very concerned. Well, it happens, she said defensively with a hint of a smile. Children's spleens are very delicate. Are they, Mom? I ask, amused. I'm sure I read that somewhere, she replies with the same breezy confidence that has characterized so many of her more creative pronouncements over the years. Brian had always appreciated this quality in Mom, her absolute certainty about things that might be completely unfounded, delivered not with arrogance but with an innocent conviction that was somehow endearing rather than frustrating. It was part of what he called downy drama that made family gatherings anything but boring. Brian also remembers some of your more interesting choices over the years, I carefully continued, watching her reaction. Things you said that sometimes came out sounding different than you intended. Her expression turned suspicious. What things? Well, there was a time when you were trying to eat a rather large hamburger, or maybe a hot dog. Do you remember what you said about it? She shakes her head, looking genuinely puzzled. You said, "It's not the amount of meat that concerns me, it's getting it all into my mouth that does." For a moment she looks confused, then understanding dawns, followed by a burst of laughter so genuine and uninhibited it startles both of us. It's a glimpse of the old mum, the one who could always laugh at herself, who was never too proud to be the butt of the joke. "Did I really say that?" she asks between chuckles. "You really did." Everyone at the table froze for a second, and then Dad and Brian started laughing so hard he nearly choked on his drink. "Oh my," she says. "I never realized. Goodness." This was another quality Brian had always appreciated about Mum, her complete lack of pretension. Mum had a refreshing genuineness about her. She spoke usually without calculation, laughed freely, and never seemed concerned about maintaining a perfect image during family time. Brian also remembers how happy you were at our wedding, I continue, guiding us to another memory. Her smile turns soft, nostalgic. "It was a beautiful day. You were so pretty." "You were very excited about it," I prompt. "Any idea why?" She considers us for a moment, then her eyes twinkle with mischief. "Well, you two had been living together quite a while by then." "I don't know what you are implying." I laugh, recalling Brian's exact words. "Probably because we were no longer living in sin." Mum's religious convictions had never manifested as judgment, but there had been a palpable relief when Brian and I finally made our relationship official in the eyes of the church. "That might have been part of it," I acknowledge, "but I think you were also just happy because you always liked Brian." "Of course I did," she says, as if this should be obvious. "He was good to you and funny. Your father liked him too, right from the start." This alignment of parental approval had meant more to both of us than we probably appreciated at the time. Unlike some of my friends whose partners faced ongoing scrutiny or outright disapproval from in-laws, Brian had been welcomed into the Downey family with genuine warmth. "You were always so generous with your time after we had crew," I remind her. "Brian remembers how much you loved to babysit." Mum's face lights up at the mention of her grandson. "Such a good baby," she says fondly. "So serious, watching everything with those big blue eyes." "You used to come over and watch him so Brian and I could have date nights. Do you remember that?" She nods slowly. "He had those little books with the animals, the touch and feel ones. He liked the fuzzy duck page." This specific detail surprises me. How strange that she can recall the exact page of a baby book from nearly 20 years ago. The mechanisms of memory loss remain mysterious, following no logical pattern I can discern. "You also helped so much when he was sick," I add. "That's what grandmothers do," she says simply, as if no other response would make sense. And that was Mum. Her approach to care never had a hint of martyrdom about it. She helped because it was what you did for family, without expectation of praise or reward. Brian had observed early in our relationship that this quality wasn't universal among parents or in-laws, this unshowy, matter-of-fact generosity that formed the bedrock of how Mum moved through the world. "Do you remember our cruise?" I ask, moving to another of Brian's memories. "The one where you, crew, Brian, and I all went together?" She furrows her brow, reaching for this more recent memory. "The big boat," she says finally. "I think I remember." "Yes, and there was a huge buffet. Do you remember what happened there?" She shakes her head, the details apparently beyond reach. "You got lost," I remind her gently. "The buffet was arranged in a big circle, and somehow you got separated from us. It was quite funny." "I wasn't lost," she protests, a flash of her old stubborn independence surfacing. "I was just exploring." I smile at this characteristically mom-like reframing. "Well, you explored for quite a while." Her expression suggests she doesn't fully recall this incident, but she's willing to accept it happened. "I've always had a good sense of direction," she insists, despite evidence to the contrary. "You also had a bit of trouble with the ATM on the ship," I continue, referencing another of Brian's memories. "ATM?" she repeats, the acronym seemingly unfamiliar to her now. "The machine where you get money," I explained. "You were trying to get some cash for the casino, but something went wrong with the machine." She frowns, clearly not recalling this incident this time. I think you told a ship employee that the machine ate your card. There was quite a commotion about it, and you had to try to reach Dad. She looks mildly offended at this suggestion or confusion or forgetfulness, an irony not lost on me given our current circumstances. Well, those machines can be very complicated, she says defensively. Brian had labeled this memory old lady nonsense, a phrase that feels uncomfortably prophetic now. The confusion that had been an isolated, amusing incident then has become a constant companion in Mum's current reality. Yet even in the early stages of her cognitive decline, there had been a consistent quality that Brian had identified, always looking at the bright side of things. Brian always admired how positive you stay, even when things go wrong, I tell her. He said you always find the good in every situation. This observation brings a genuine smile to her face. Well, what's the point in focusing on the bad stuff? Doesn't change anything, does it? No, it doesn't, I agree. Though you did have your moments of frustration, Brian remembers your favorite expressions when you were annoyed. She looks at me questioningly. Pink and blast, I remind her. Those were your go-to swear words. She laughs in recognition. Dave and I didn't like bad language, she explains, especially around you girls, so I had to get creative. This small adaptation exemplified so much about Mum, her respect for Dad's preferences, her commitment to setting a good example for her children, and her creative problem-solving approach to life's challenges. Instead of chafing against the restriction or ignoring it entirely, she found her own uniquely mom-like solution. Substitute words that satisfied the emotional need to express frustration without violating the family standard. As we continue through Brian's list of memories, I'm struck by the portrait they collectively paint, not just of Mum, but of the relationship she and Brian built over nearly 3 decades. It wasn't the close bond she shared with Dad or the maternal connection she had with Jen and me, but something uniquely its own, a relationship built on small moments of humor, understanding, and mutual respect. Brian hadn't just tolerated his mother-in-law or maintained a polite distance. He genuinely appreciated her unique qualities, her unfiltered commentary, her enthusiastic engagement with life, her unfailing generosity, her bright side perspective. He'd seen in her the origins of qualities he valued in me, and he'd recognized the gift of having in-laws who welcomed rather than merely accepted him. We talked for nearly an hour, moving through Brian's memories, with Mum sometimes recognizing the incidents described, and other times listening with polite interest to stories that might as well be about someone else. As she tires, her responses become briefer, her focus less steady. Recognizing the signs of fatigue, I wrap up our conversation. Brian wanted me to tell you how much these memories mean to him, I say, taking her hand. 27 years of being part of this family has given him a lot to be thankful for. Mum squeezes my hand in return, her grip surprisingly strong despite her frailty. 27 years, she repeats, seeming to grasp the significance of the number. That's a long time. It is, I agree. We celebrated our anniversary last September. She nods, processing this information, then, with unexpected clarity, she says, Brian is a good man, the best husband for you. The simplicity of this assessment brings tears to my eyes. Even through the clouds, she recognizes what matters most. Not the specific memories or shared experiences, but the essential truth of who Brian is and what he has meant to our family. He takes care of you, she continues, her gaze suddenly sharp and present. That's what I always wanted, someone who would see how special you are and who would support everything you do. He does, Mum, I assure her, voice thick with emotion, and he takes very good care of you, too. And he makes you laugh, she adds. That's important. Dave made me laugh every day. This comparison to her own beloved marriage feels like a blessing of sorts, her highest form of approval. For all the complexity of relationships, all the potential pitfalls of in-law dynamics, Mum had approached her role in our marriage with the same straightforward warmth she brought to every aspect of life. Welcome fully, love generously, find joy where you can. I'll tell him you said that, I promise. It will mean a lot to him. Her eyes begin to drift closed, the effort of conversation finally overtaking her. I sit with her for a moment as she dozes off, marveling at this moment of perfect lucidity emerging from the general confusion of our visit. Even as so much else slips away, her ability to recognize and name love remains intact, not just the love she's given and received throughout her life, but the love she witnesses in others. My mom and dad modeled good marriage and taught me the most important thing. They taught me how to love well. Not the showy kind of love that demands attention, but the everyday kind that shows up consistently, that makes room for people to be themselves, that forgives quickly and laughs often. Of all the legacies she might leave, the faith she lived so genuinely, the service she offered so generously, the joy she found so readily, perhaps the most meaningful is this. She showed us how to love well without fanfare or complication, but with a consistency that made it seem as natural and necessary as breathing. 27 years into my marriage, I'm still learning what that means. He still looks at you like you're the only person in the room, she'd once said. And in that simple observation, she captured everything that matters. Brian's perspective. What I love about Brian's memories is how different they are from mine. I carry all the weight of being mom's daughter, the complicated history and the expectations, the role reversals, and Brian just gets to appreciate her quirks without that baggage. When she was convinced the crew had burst his spleen from tripping on the boardwalk, I probably would have been annoyed or embarrassed, but Brian found it endearing. In hindsight, it was funny, but wow, it was pretty dramatic when it happened. Children's spleens are very delicate, she says, with absolute conviction, despite having, absolutely no clue. That quality, the uncertainty about things that might be completely unfounded, the downy drama, as Brian coined it, too many years ago, that made family gatherings interesting, He appreciated what I sometimes would struggle with. Mom's comment about the hamburger, oh, yeah. I remember Dad and Brian laughing so hard. These happen to Mom a lot, that's what she said moments, She, I don't know, if some of them were intentional or not. I don't think so. It just always kind of happened that way. And now, of course, my boys do that to me all the time. So that's fun. But I love that, Mom never, in family situations, she didn't really need to maintain a perfect image, right? She'd just laugh at herself. And that's a gift, being able to laugh at yourself and not take yourself too seriously. I really, truly wish that I was better at that myself. The moment that got me in this chapter was near the end when Mom had that kind of flash of clarity saying that Brian was the best husband for me. Even through all that kind of fog, she could see what mattered. Not specific memories, but just the essential truth of who Brian is. And he makes you laugh. That's important. Dave made me laugh every day. I think comparing Brian's place in my life to Dad's place in hers really means a lot to me. I think it's a blessing on our marriage, I think I'm just going to move on to questions so I don't start crying. So the first one is from Lisa. In Signs Along the Way, you talked about all the signs from your dad, the Bruins room, scenic woods, the Blue Jays. Do you still get signs from him, or did they stop once you got settled at Willow Grove? Great question. They haven't stopped. They're more subtle now, maybe. And I'm not as desperately looking for them, but they still come, and they come when I ask for them too. Blue Jays still show up, meaningful moments. If I'm having a particularly hard day and a rabbit shows up in my yard, or just when I think about Dad, there will be some really super clear sign that kind of shows up somewhere. Just last week, I was kind of struggling with something, and I found a forget-me-not growing in my garden. It's been cold here. It's almost November. It's been cold, and this forget-me-not just popped up in my garden. And, I don't know, maybe that's normal. I've never really seen them growing in a garden at this time of year, but, that's what happened. And I think the signs are always there. We just have to kind of stay open to seeing them. Next question is from Carol. Reading about your dad's death and the aftermath made me so sad. My husband died 2 years ago, also suddenly, and I'm still sorting through his things. The line about literal trash with immense meaning but nowhere to go. That's exactly it. Thank you for naming something I couldn't find words for. This is common. I'm finding a lot of people say, you have named something I couldn't find words for. You've labeled it. You've put the words out there. I'm glad that I've been able to do that and help people. I'm really so sorry about your husband, Carol. I'm glad that line resonated, even though I hate that you understand it so intimately. Um, that feeling of holding something that meant the world to him or to you two together and realizing it's just an object now, it has no value to anyone else, but throwing it away feels like erasing him. I don't know. Hate it. It's just a weird thing that I guess we all have to experience. I kept so little from their house. I physically, I couldn't keep most of it, but the guilt of letting the stuff go and of deciding what deserved to be saved and what didn't, that was pretty brutal. It's got me really looking into Swedish death cleaning. I got to get my shit together and literally throw everything out of my own stuff so that, nobody has to do this for me. Anyway, Carol, 2 years out, are you finding it any easier, or is it still kind of that same impossible wait? I know you can't really talk back to me, but you can message me if you want. Next message is from Dan. I read your book and I thought maybe you could use my comment for the chapter about Brian and your mom. Yes, here we are. Your mom's comment about Brian, he makes you laugh. That's important. Dave made me laugh every day. That made me think about my own marriage. We've been together 15 years and I can't remember the last time we really laughed together. Reading your book is making me realize what I'm letting slip away while she's still here. Wow, thank you for sharing that. And I hope it's not too late to reclaim that laughter. Mom and Dad, they had their struggles like any couple married over 50 years, like any couple married over 1 year. They prioritized joy. They chose to find humor in daily life and they made each other laugh. That's a choice, I think. It's not always an easy one, especially when life gets hard, but I think it's a choice that matters. If the book is making you aware of what you're missing, maybe that awareness is the first step to choosing differently, Talk to your wife, tell her you want more laughter. Ask her what would bring her joy. It's not too late. It's not. It's never too late until it is, but it's just not too late for you right now. Dan, this is not about you specifically, but just generally speaking. I love and live in a unique way within relationships. And what I do know without a doubt is that if you don't make effort every single day, not just when things are easy, but especially when they're harder, your relationship likely won't survive. I've seen it. I've seen people give up or pack it in when things get their worst. That isn't love to me. Love is showing up all day, every day, even when you don't want to, even when you think you can't. If you can't do that for the person you say you love, do you really love them? I know that sounds harsh, but I think it's a valid question that people should be asking themselves. How can you say you're in love with someone you aren't willing to put any effort into? Right? You're a team. And it isn't 50-50. It's 100-100. So that's all I will say on that. If you have any questions or comments, you can send them to unboundwithbethcurry@gmail.com or join the Facebook group where I would like to discuss these episodes as they're released. If you want to support the show, ko-fi.com/unbound podcast. I've had some people ask me if it's just subscription only. No, you can do one-time support, any amount you want. So yeah, that's it. You don't need to subscribe to anything, to monthly anything. You can literally send me $2 and forget about me forevermore. Thanks for being here. Thanks for sharing your stories with me, and I will see you in the next episode.
Thanks for listening to Unbound with Beth Curry. Join the conversation in the Facebook group or visit authorbethcurry.com. Want to support the show? Head to ko-fi.com/unbound podcast. Until next time, stay unbound.